Good afternoon, good morning, I think. I very intentionally didn't put headphones in because when Old Faithful erupts, it is so nice to hear the crowd respond to it. So welcome back to Yellowstone National Park, ladies and gentlemen. 1872, the world's oldest national park, in a modern sense anyway. And it is a gorgeous, gorgeous blue sky day out here. It's cool. It's under 60 degrees Fahrenheit at the moment. I'm walking along, by the way, and you get all this really light gravel here. That's all, hey Michelle, that's all, hi Mary Beth, that's all volcanic soil. Now, let me just switch this around for a second. Hi Martine, thanks for joining in last minute. But that is, of course, the panoramic view of Old Faithful. I think I've shown you a video from here before. So what I thought would be fun this morning is, of course, it's due to erupt at 9:51. I expect it's about 46 minutes past the hour here. It can erupt 10 minutes either side. And we say erupt, this is a geyser, of course. This is the Geyser Basin down here. There's a few geyser basins, but this is the biggest one. Oh, it's already starting to steam. It does this a lot, though. It sort of spits and starts. Martina, it is a glorious day. What we're looking at behind, that is the caldera rim out there. So I was just over at the fountain paint pots. Don't worry, I will bring us back absolutely when we start to see the eruption. But I want to take you over here because there's a teepee out here. And part of the reason people came up here, this gets very, very cold in the winter. I'm up at about 7,000 feet here, you know, high up. Yesterday we drove to nearly 9,000 feet. You know, that's getting up towards 3,000 meters above sea level. So they can be down hi Jay, well below freezing in the winter. But there's always been a huge amount of wildlife up here because of all the natural warm water causes extra growth of vegetation. So I saw some bison this morning and saw coyote this morning as well. Isn't it lovely to see a lovely teepee? So there's the Tribal Heritage Center up there. It is a gorgeous day. It's actually been just lovely. Now, down in the southern states, I think a lot of kids have gone back to school. So I still do time my departures. Yesterday morning, we left very early into the park, which I do on that morning for the North Loop, because some of the parking spots I like to go to are very limited. And we're with a big tour coach. Hiya, Ken, nice to see you. And so, you know, we did a good loop around, but actually no bears this trip. And last time I saw, I don't know, about 6 bears in the park. So that's luck of the draw, but loads of baby bison and lots of, that's not true. We did actually see one black bear, but so far away that we were sort of debating whether it was a bison or a black bear, but logically it was too small to be a bison. So that's where we were. So these are all these uprooted trees. But this whole geyser basin here is a massive area. Who's that? Oh, Elizabeth, ciao. Ciao. Everyone, we have a celebrity on board. All the way from Siena and Florence is our friend Elizabeth. It's good to see you, my friend. Well, look at this guy here. So I'll say, Nicole, where am I? Nicole, take a guess. What does that look like to you? I am in Yellowstone National Park, and I'm at the Old Faithful Geyser Basin here. So up behind me there is the big hotel. The visitor center here is excellent. It explains a lot of what's going on underneath the ground. Bison do walk on their hind legs. They don't do handstands, but they're much bigger up top. Oh, sorry, I was just told that my my computer's no longer near me. I don't know if it'll show on the screen out here. Sorry, there's a, come on, switch. Hi, Ruth. There we go. Well, it wasn't switching very, there. A whole flock of geese just flew over, Canadian geese. But okay, now this, usually it spits and starts a little bit here. So this is Old Faithful, goes off every 90 minutes on average. And of course, it's probably the most famous geyser in the world, but the word geyser, of course, is an Icelandic word. And the actual traditional geyser, which is out in the Golden Circle near Thingvellir, the oldest parliament in the world, it really doesn't spit much anymore. But this one here, now there was one other eruption just a few minutes ago further around in the basin. So this one, it starts to build up, but basically this big mound here Hi, Nat. So imagine Yellowstone. So Yellowstone National Park is about 3,200 square miles. It's about 5,400 square kilometers. Massive area. It is a hot spot in the world. Now, I've talked about this so much, but it's always fascinating. Yellowstone doesn't move. The volcano doesn't move. The continent moves across it. Plate tectonics, just that's your basic introduction to it. There's two hot spots officially in North America. This one here and down in where New Mexico is. And that's where the crust is very thin. Now, the size of this massive magma chamber underneath us here is about 3 times longer than scientists used to think it was. So all of this geyser water activity that's up top here, just imagine kind of the top, I don't know, 30 meters, 100 feet of all the water. Of course, once upon a time, there was a glacier over here that was 4,000 feet deep, right? Over 1,000 meters deep. And you have all the snow in the winter. Well, all of that drains into the ground here. And then you have this huge porous system. I am standing inside a super volcano right now. The last eruption was 640,000 years ago. And the previous one was probably 1.2 million years. It means we're in the window for an eruption. People often ask me, how much of an indication we have if there's going to be an eruption. Well, probably a fair bit, but there's not much we could do about it. I mean, this is massive. It erupts southeast. And, but if suddenly every geyser started going off and all the water started boiling off the top of it, that's when I would either sit here and just come to terms with myself, or I would try and head off to like Yukon or Alaska, go the exact other direction of it. So, it is a massive super volcano. But if you think of this giant mound, this big plateau that I'm standing in right now, being 640,000 years since the last eruption, south of me, where I'm heading today, are the mighty Tetons, the beautiful Teton Mountains. They're the youngest range of mountains in what we consider the Rockies. Now, that's not just the northern, like the Canadian Rockies are their own thing, but this whole system. See, there's an eruption happening way in the distance there right now. But they're 10 million years old. So if this is 640,000, geologically, that's very young. And so that's why we're looking out here at the rim of the caldera. And so often people are with me here and they say, well, how is it a volcano? Because you always have that conical image of a volcano. Well, the best way I can describe it is imagine the big island of Hawaii sitting in the middle of the continent, right? Think of it in those terms. And that kind of puts it in some perspective. Now, I've obviously had the opportunity to see Old Faithful erupt so many times. Mary Beth is here. She's been here with me. So what I love to do is stand back, and this is actually not a big crowd for Old Faithful, but I love to stand back and hear the whole crowd sort of respond to it. So when I pulled up with my tour coach, we pulled up by the old lodge here, lovely old building back there. And then I run inside and it tells me what time they're expecting the next eruption. And so it was at 9:51. Martine, there are, well, just in this basin, there'd be 12, I'd say, that probably qualify as a pure geyser. So you have geysers. That's what's so cool about this basin. Then you have like Morning Glory, which is a 2-mile walk from here. That's one of the hot pools. And then you have the bubbling mud pools as well. They're all the different forms, all the different ways that this top level of this gigantic super volcano manifest. So, and it's always shifting. So you see this mound out here? When you drive through the park and you suddenly see a whole stand of trees where the base of them are white, well, that means the ground is shifted and it's basically cooked them in situ. So, it is interesting what's happening. I don't particularly want to be a tree here. Now, there's a large indigenous population of indigenous animals, I want to say. Indigenous people. This is the land of the Shoshone from the south. The Blackfoot made it all the way down here. Well, it's perfect hunting. Bison and elk, both classic. And the rivers are full of fish. Now, you will remember that back in the 1990s, they reintroduced wolves to the park. I'm just going to stay pretty focused right now on Old Faithful because it will erupt sometime, like we're right in the window of the eruption. Often does this, almost peters out, and then it spurts forth. And we want just a little bit of wind. See, there's virtually no wind at the moment. You can see in the distance. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. I was thinking about it, but yeah, so people would come in here to hunt, but the wolves were reintroduced in the 1990s. They came down from Alberta, where I'm from. And again, we're part of a massive ecosystem, which is Y to Y, Yukon to Yellowstone, and trying to connect it. This is, of course, the world's first modern national park, but this whole ecosystem goes right down into the mountain chains south of Jackson, south of the Tetons, and all the way down to the Rockies of Colorado. So, you know, pretty much the same animals from all the way down there, all the way up to Yukon, Alaska. That's how it's all kind of interrelated. So it's, you know, it's a pretty fantastic system. But when they reintroduced the wolves, of course, at first people were saying, oh, you know, the ranchers were going to kill them and so forth. Well, anyway, the wolf population has survived. Oh, you're welcome, Nat. So I've seen about 4 coyotes on this trip. I haven't seen a wolf pack on this one, but the wolves really hunt the elk. They do go after the bison too, but really the elk. And we saw lots of elk the last couple of days up on the side of hills. That's what they do to escape the wolf packs rather than being down by the rivers. Here we go. Maybe we'll start the eruption. So then the wolf packs, because the elk are not eating all of the really good vegetation along the river, it's filtering out pollutants, and the fish population is recovering, or has recovered. So you see lots of people fishing as well. Hi, Jennifer. So this is, for those of you just joining in, this is Old Faithful in the Old Faithful Geyser Basin here inside the caldera of the supervolcano of Yellowstone. It is called Yellowstone for the yellowish rock. You see a little bit here, but yesterday I took my group up to see the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone, the mighty Yellowstone River, which is the longest tributary of the Missouri, which is a tributary, of course, of the mighty Mississippi. All right, so, in fact, could someone tell me how many minutes past the hour we are right now? Are we at about 55, I think? It's why I ask is because, say, the official time was 51 minutes past the hour. And so I turned on about 5 minutes beforehand. It can happen. 58. Thanks, Jay. Yeah, so it's, that's great. Oh, hi, Casey. I didn't see you there. Hi. So, yeah, so the longer we wait tends to be a bigger eruption. And all of this water spews up. Hey, Sarah. And then, of course, it gets swallowed back into this extremely porous system. So, by the way, if my voice sounds a little croaky, I spent 12 hours in bed last night. We have COVID on my bus. I tested yesterday. I've tested twice negative, but I definitely have a little bit of a cold. So, so hopefully now I've never ever tested positive for COVID at all, but a couple of people definitely have it. So just keep an eye on it. Thank you for the stars, everyone. It's not that crowded today. In fact, Dagny was here with me about a month ago, right? And the southern states, the kids have gone back to school. And so it just hasn't been as crowded as, hey, Steve. Steve's been here with me as well. Hi there. But there's still probably 3,000 people around here. All I've seen it with a solid like 10,000. So we're staying. It worked out time-wise perfectly with my group today that we'll be able to stay for 2 eruptions. And now we're really 7 minutes past the predicted time. So, and all of a sudden, it's so funny because you start to become a little disheartened, and then all of a sudden, off it goes. And it goes, a full eruption carries on for about 5 or 6 minutes, although you get about 30 seconds to a minute of the full spire. And this is where, there we go. I want some wind to come up. So this is just hot water that's being compressed by the magma chamber underneath us. And these very deep channels. Same reasons why we have, well, sort of the same reasons why we have hot springs in Banff, the thin channels. Okay, I think we're starting now. Here we go, everyone. Listen for the crowd. That's great. You can hear it. Oh, no, we just need a bit of wind. Everybody blow hard. I'm going to blow that mist off. Ooh, this is a good one. This is the natural power of our planet in action here right now. Now, because there's no wind, we're not really seeing how high the actual water is. But look how high the mist is still coming up. Oh, I'm going to start to feel some drops. Over in Norris, they actually have warnings from one of them when it erupts. It has so many chemicals that it affects the paint in people's cars. Yeah, let's keep walking around here. I don't mind feeling the mist of this one, doesn't it? It's a lovely thing. Isn't it lovely? There, actually, if I keep walking around a little bit, you can see some of the water coming up the side. There we go, from a few different angles here. So a very narrow channel that spits that up. So the next one will be in about an hour and a half. So this is one of those places that certainly all Americans should see in their lifetime. Ulysses S. Grant, 1872, when they declared this a park, they had to have the U.S. military here for about 30 years. Nobody understood the idea of a national park. Thank goodness for them. Thank goodness for these protected spaces. But of all the national parks, this is one that at some point is going to blow up. But you have such incredible biodiversity through here. And I'm a huge supporter of the National Park Services, of course, and they've done such a good job in building this whole boardwalk and viewing area, because how else do you allow so many thousands of people to partake in something like this? Isn't that a wonderful treat to see, everyone? So the whole basin. Oh, you're welcome, Steve. Nice to see you, my friend. It's I will actually be back here one more time this year. I was only here once last year, and it will end up being, I guess, 5 times this year. Of course, I just came back from the UK and Ireland. See, it's still spitting away. Everyone's walking away, but it's still spitting. And I'm going to be home for a while, and then I'll come down here. And then I'm going to have great fun because I have Irish farmers coming to visit Alberta. And then I'm heading to the Canadian Maritimes. So I'll definitely give you a couple of live experiences down there. Now what I'm going to do, stick with me everyone if you have the energy to do it. I'm just going to cut across here, and I'm going to take you around away from the crowds a little bit. But if you did look over here, so there's the visitor center through there. I'm not going to chance going into it because, you know, in the past I could never have live streamed this. In the past I never had reception. Well, I did, but just enough to make a basic phone call. But they've really improved the towers around here, which is nice to be able to share this. Here's the big hotel. But this whole system, see, it is still spewing away up there. Right? And look at that blue sky. Virtually no pollution here. I do have sunscreen on. It is, Jay, even when it's just in video, but you feel like you're here because you are here. I mean, this is the wonder of live videos, of course. So it's so nice to share it with everyone. But I want to give you a sense of the broader basin. So I thought, you know what, I'm not in a mad rush today. So if you'd like to come for a little walk with me, I'm more than happy to take you out. I just want to try and get away from the crowds. And so it's, do you know, my whole group, only 2 people had been here before, whereas usually I have people who've been quite a lot. So it's a real treat to take them. My whole group's from Michigan. And so from quite lowlands, you know, so they're feeling, some of them are feeling the altitude a little bit. Let's get through these crowds for a minute here. I'll switch over. So, my reverse button, sorry, is not working very well. I just, I don't like to stick cameras right in people's faces too much for all the obvious reasons. I do want to thank stars, and like I said, oh, there we are, disconnected for a second, which does happen with these crowds. But I did actually get a payment from Meta for stars. I don't know what the breakdown is or how much they keep or anything, but thanks for sending them. So let's, now, this is what I want to try to do. Let me get past these folks here. This is the walk through here, is the walk to the Morning Glory pool. But you see the red that's coming out? So this is the other view. There's the water flowing out from Old Faithful down here. And this red down here is all bacterial sheets. And of course, for most of the history of our planet, life on this planet was single-cell organism. This is the thesis behind life on Europa, you know, that moon of Saturn. And that's because they have the hot spires as well. So, just get past everyone here. So, there are bison around. I don't know. See if we can try and find you a bison. Yeah, I like the view from this. Do you know, I've watched the geyser go off from so many different angles before. But have a look at the red down in there. And then you see all these other ones. There actually is not another one, aside from Old Faithful, that's predicted to erupt here until about 1245. And so there's been so much activity this year that this is a little bit calmer. So I've had my best bison viewings on this particular trip because the mummies are all out with their babies. But haven't seen bears on this trip. Whereas last trip I saw a lot of bears. You know, that's the nature of it, so to speak. But it's still pretty cool to participate. There was one bison coming in here. This is one of the places when you read about people being hit by bison because they go up too close to them on these paths. And you'll find bison dung all over the place. A huge population in here. Oh, thanks, Dagny. Dagny, you were lovely to have on travel. You're going to have to come on another trip. But yeah, this particular trip, exactly. Dagny was on it this year with me, and we started up at home in Banff. Banff was good on this trip, except we had a lot of smoke at the Columbia ice fields from the forest fires. And then it was very, very rainy in Glacier Park. And now I've had just great weather. It was funny, we were getting on the bus in Missoula in the morning. It was raining heavily. And, you know, nobody was complaining, but I could tell they were a little disappointed. And then the sun came out, and Butte and Virginia City and all of that was just perfect. Here's signs you see everywhere around Yellowstone. No, I didn't, Casey. That says danger, hazardous thermal gun. Do you know, well, this particular trip, like, say yesterday I just finished my day touring and went to bed just because I haven't been feeling 100%. But hopefully September, Aisha can make it up to West Yellowstone and with her family, because I'd love to have dinner with her because I haven't seen her this year. They've been busy. But yeah, I did put up a little video on the camper van group yesterday because of course we actually had to stop for a huge bison out on the road. So have a look at the field out here. So once again, there's the rim of the caldera, and this is just massive. You could think of Mount St. Helens, for example. You would drop that into the middle of this thing in just one of the mounds. The highest drive you go over is by Mount Washburn. You get up just shy of 9,000 feet. Although the highest peaks in the park are in the southeast corner, and they're over 11,000. This little walkway through here. Just going to sneak past these folks without putting the camera too much. But it is interesting to me when you see all this wonderful growth. This is what keeps the animals coming here. You know, because they have growth all winter. This place gets extremely cold, but they have access to so much food. So there's looking across at Beehive Geyser over there. And so the Grand Prismatic is the famous one you've seen the photographs of from National Geographic where all are red. That's actually just about 3 miles up the road from here. It's not actually as much fun to walk around because it's so big. It's better seen from an aerial view, but all of this is eventually flowing into the Madison, and it means that even though this place gets so cold, you have a higher level of water flow in the winter, which then allows for all this growth and all this vegetation, which is obviously really good for wildlife. So I'll just sneak past these folks up here. So this little loop around back here is really neat. I'm going to go take you to one of the springs, one of the hot springs. But this ground is always shifting, and the Park Service does a wonderful job in building these walkways. Of course, they have to deal with harsh winter conditions, millions of visitors, and then the ground can just shift. Earthquakes all the time here. A lot of them you don't feel, but the magma chamber is always just shifting around and rebalancing in on itself. So, and then of course we have had the most spectacular flower season down here, and that's because really spring came so late to this part of the Rockies because they got all our snow that we should have had. But I want to come and show you this gurgling spring up here. This is just the earth boiling away. So welcome. Isn't it fun walking in the middle of a volcano with me? Years ago, I walked up the top of Bacaya in Guatemala. I stepped over lava, and then 2 years later, 3 years later, it blew its top off. So that water is obviously hitting right on boiling. And the sun is just getting hotter and hotter around us now. So I didn't put in my headphones, so I'm hoping everyone's hearing me just fine. Now this is where the boardwalks. Oh, I wish you could smell this too, because it's all of the distinct sulfur smell up through here. Yeah, so it is fascinating. So Morning Glory is about a 25-minute walk down in that direction. But I do love doing this trip, of course, and because I come down to these places. I mean, I've been coming, if I exclude my childhood, I've been coming here still for over 20 years, and coming in different seasons. Of course, you know, I see the flowers come up at different times, and then you see the different wildlife, and you see the babies. You know, I've been seeing the baby elk as well. Here's another. See, this is why you don't walk on the crust anywhere here, because this is where you get into these hot springs. This is not a geyser. But look at the deep, deep turquoisey water there. Now, when it's that deep and clear, it means that it's so hot that nothing's growing, but along the edge, bacteria is growing to it. And you can try to guess what map that is there. I think it's kind of a version of Colombia, to be honest. There we are. All right, let me just keep moving around. So many people here, so... Excuse me. So for those of you who have joined in later, you'll have to go back and watch the replay, because there is Old Faithful, probably the world's most famous geyser. But it already had an eruption, so it'll be 90 minutes before the next one. And then if I'm really lucky, there'll be some wind, and it'll just blow the vapor away from it, so you can see the height of the actual eruption. So there we are, ladies and gentlemen. What I'm going to do today, even though I'm not feeling my normal 110%, is there's a walk up to a viewpoint up on the hill up there. And so I'm going to go hike up there for the fun of it, just because it's such a nice day. The views will be good, and maybe I'll make a little YouTube video, seeing as I have the gimbal with me. But look at all this flowing down into the river down through here. Isn't that gorgeous? So, good morning. So it's lovely to see, and loads of fish in these rivers. And here's one more little angle of where mighty Old Faithful is. So thanks for coming to hang out, everyone. And feel free to, I know I put this up so totally last minute, so feel absolutely free to share it. Look at this little hot spot down through here. Well, we say I shouldn't exercise. The only way to overcome temptation is to give in to it, right? But I did honestly. I was in bed for over 12 hours last night. And not in a fun way. But so I just thought I'd go out and get a bit of a nice bit of fresh air. It's warming up there. Thank you, Mary Beth. So big hugs to all of you. Thank you for coming and hanging out and connecting with me super last minute. But I do always, when we finish, of course, we have to finish with some little temptation. So I should tell you a time. So the first time I ever came here, I came with my parents, right? We drove down. The next time I came to Yellowstone, I rode my bicycle here. That's what's that? No, please don't give me any of those gory stats. So I rode down here with my bicycle, right? So it took me a long time. I started in the middle of BC in Kelowna, and I went down through Washington, Northern Idaho, all the way here, big climb up. And then the weather turned just rancid. So then, I mean, just rancid, so much so I couldn't be actually even riding the bike. But I was very, very lucky, because I was picked up by two women who were driving through the park. And they said they were actually staying in one of these lodges. And, you know, they were very, very